What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie Eden. Here's a quick synopsis. Dr. Friedrich Ritter and his spouse Dor Schrouch have given up being a part of German society and attempt to live on Florena in the Galapagos Islands, where they are joined by visitors. The film stars Jude Law, Vanessa Kirby, Sydney Sweeny, Daniel Bruhl, Ana de Armas, Jonathan Tittel, Toby Wallace, and Felix Kammerer. Standout performances. If you followed the career of Jude Law, then you know he occasionally likes to do an accent in a movie. Recently, he played Henry VIII in the movie Firebrand, and he can definitely pull an accent off, and he's good in Eden as Friedrich Ritter, who thinks he's above most things. I don't know much about the real man, but I have a feeling this movie doesn't do his whole story justice. It pins him as someone who is seeking attention. Law here is at his best in this movie when he's giving up on his beliefs and is driven completely mad. I just don't think enough people are paying attention to the really good work that Jude Law has been doing recently. Jude Law's next movie is The Wizard of Kremlin, where he plays Vladimir Putin. It's interesting to me that early on in his career, Jude Law was more of a movie star than he was a really good actor, and now he's more of a really good actor than he is a movie star. I don't think Eden is anywhere near the best work of Jude Law's career, but he is very good in the film. Sydney Sweeny had a moment where she rose to stardom, and now she's having a different kind of moment, and one could say it has to do with overexposure. She's on commercials that people have strong feelings about. People are pointing out her recent movies, including this one, are not doing well at the box office and are largely getting ignored. But I fully understand why she's in the movie Eden. It's a real drama with legit stars and has her working with an Oscar-winning director in Ron Howard. In Eden, Sweeny plays Margaret Whitmer, a real-life figure, and I think she's good in this movie, but has been far better in other things. As of today, her best film performance is in Reality, because that whole movie was built around her, and this one isn't. Reality was a real character study and a real showcase for Sydney Sweeny, and this movie just isn't. But I do get the play. I get what she's doing. She's trying to be in movies within so many different genres. She's done a romantic comedy. She's done a horror. This is her version of a drama. Sydney Sweeney's next films include Christie from director David Michôd and The Housemaid from Paul Feig, and finally we are getting the long-awaited season 3 of Euphoria. I know people are down on her at this moment, but I still believe in Sydney Sweeny as a movie star. I just don't think this movie utilizes her as a movie star like it should. The performer asked to do the most in the movie Eden is Vanessa Kirby. She plays Dor Schrouch, who is dealing with multiple sclerosis and thinks her spouse, Friedrich Ritter, is going to come up with a cure, and I walked away impressed by her in this movie. She has to convey a real connection with a donkey. I don't think she was given a whole lot to work with in this movie. I think this is just an example of Vanessa Kirby bringing her acting prowess and star power to the role. Kirby is next set to once again play Sue Storm in Avengers Doomsday. The best performance in the movie Eden comes from Ana de Armas playing Baroness Eloise Verborn de Wagner Busquet, who comes to the island in hopes of turning it into a hotel, and her best scene is when she confronts Dr. Ritter, telling him he wants to be famous just as much as she does. It feels like I differ than most people because I believe Ana de Armas had a great 2025 between Ballerina and Eden. The two films show her range. In one, she's the stoic action hero, and in another, she's boisterous and given great dialogue, but it's hard to argue that she walked away this year being a bigger star, which was clearly the intention. attention. I thought both movies would fare way better at the box office than they did. Let's talk about the director of Eden, Ron Howard. Ron Howard is a filmmaker who's made movies that lots of people love. Splash, the movie that turned Tom Hanks into a leading man. Apollo 13, one of the best space movies of all time. A Beautiful Mind, a film that gets credit for one of the best twists ever. My personal favorite movie from the director is Parenthood. It had great performances from well-established stars, Steve Martin, Diane Wiest, and Rick Moranis, paired with then newcomers Martha Plimpton, Keanu Reeves, and then Lee Phoenix, who we all know is now Joaquin Phoenix. It's my favorite performance from Keanu Reeves. He's playing a dimwit, but in such a lovable way. So those movies of the past, where are we right now with Ron Howard? It's been a while since he had a movie that I would deem a hit. I was a fan of 2022's 13 Lives, but not many people saw it. And 2020's Hillbilly Elegy was an Oscar play that didn't pan out. Nothing more I want to say on that particular film. I personally was upset when Ron Howard took Solo over from Lord and Miller. I wanted to see their version of that movie. Look, Ron Howard's a solid filmmaker. He can make a movie that's entertaining, and his name still holds cachet. A-listers clearly want to work with him. I just don't think he's at the height of his power right now and on the top of his game. He's the type of director who can make any kind of movie in any kind of genre, but I just don't know what kind of movie he should be making right now. And that gets me to Eden, which I think is a good movie that had the potential to be great. One critique I have is the focus on so many characters makes it so there's no one real lead to this film, and I get it. When you have this caliber of stars, you need to have each of them be given a moment. The problem is, no one is given the entire movie. You could argue it's de Armas. The issue is this movie really could have worked better if you had given any of the three of them, Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Sydney Sweeny, even Vanessa Kirby, if you had made it their movie, the movie would have been a lot better. Don't get me wrong, I love an ensemble movie when it's working, but when it's not, you can clearly tell that a movie needs a lead, and this is a movie that needed a leading character. Maybe it's a cliche thing to say, but sometimes a movie just needs somebody that you really root for, and this movie does not give you that whatsoever. No, this movie gives you a bunch of things that's interesting about each and every one of these characters, but then leaves you wanting so much more from every one of them. Don't mind me saying, but this is a movie that puts these people in an extreme situation, but then doesn't give you so much of the necessary backstory about why they're there. And this is a real story. I mean, you could have given me so much more backstory about how these people got onto this island, but the movie was clearly only interested in getting them on the island. Box office, Eden did not fare well at all at the box office, making just $2.5 million, which I am surprised by because of the star power. You have Sydney Sweeny, who was in a hit rom-com, Anyone But You, Vanessa Kirby from the Fantastic Four First Steps. I was being really naive when it came to this movie Eden. The minute I heard this cast announced, I was like, this movie is going to make money because it stars Jude Law, because it stars Sydney Sweeny, because it stars Vanessa Kirby, and because it stars Ana de Armas. And it's because my brain is trapped in 2010 when a cast like this automatically means that even if this movie is dull and boring, that it's going to make $40 to $55 million. We are at a point in 2025 when a movie like this only does commercially well if it is received well critically, and this movie was not received particularly well. I would call it a mid-response to this movie. I would say the consensus is that Ron Howard played it safe, and a lot of people are saying he's not the right kind of director to make this psychological thriller, if you will. This is supposed to be a movie about these people turning on each other and going mad. In my opinion, is Howard is successful in one sense in that he got a great performance from Ana de Armas. I think the problem is there needs to be more than one great performance, especially in a movie where there's not one clear leading character. Jude Law needed to be great. Vanessa Kirby needed to be great. I think both are very good, but they're not great in this movie. Sydney Sweeny is good in this movie, but she's not great. Oscar chances. When I first heard of this movie, Eden, I did foolishly believe that it was going to be a major player at the Oscars because of the cast and because it's directed by Ron Howard, a man who has won Best Director before. If it were up to me who gets nominated for an Oscar for this movie, it would be Ana de Armas. Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not, because the movie isn't getting received well enough for an acting nomination to come out of it. Overall, I think Eden is a representation of how movies in 2025 are in a weird place, because this is not popular. Not many people are speaking about this movie, even though it has the big names and it's directed by Ron Howard. I mean, it's odd to think about that everyone on the internet is still talking about Sydney Sweeny, yet no one is watching this movie. So fame, even if it's not always good, is not getting people to watch this film. And what is kind of wild about this movie, Eden, is I do think it's trying to be more entertaining than a prestige movie that's just chasing Oscars. Like, I think that's part of it. I think this movie was made so that Sydney Sweeny could get an Oscar nomination and those kinds of things and reestablish Ron Howard. But at the end of the day, I really do think it's trying to be pure entertainment. But what does that really mean if no one is watching the movie? I don't have the answers to those kinds of questions. This had long been on my list of movies I wanted to talk about this year because I thought it was going to be a big deal. I thought because of the involvement of Sydney Sweeny, this movie was going to make, say, $80 million at the box office. I thought that it would be a big deal. I thought this could potentially be a movie that got Jude Law another acting nomination at the Oscars. And because of Ron Howard, I thought it would be a movie worth talking about on a 20-minute podcast. And I do kind of still believe that, but I don't think it's as good as I thought it was going to be. But I also thought even if the movie was only mid, people were still going to be talking about it, and that is simply not the case. And I don't know why. Like, a lot of the times people say, oh, it's because there's a lack of star power in a certain movie. You can't say that about this one, because it has Vanessa Kirby, it has Sydney Sweeny, it has Jude Law, and it has Ana de Armas. These people are stars. Now, you can go back and forth on how big of stars they are, but in their own rights, they are stars. They have all been in popular things recently. Maybe this all comes down to marketing. Like, I had no idea what movie I was watching coming into Eden. I had no idea. I didn't do the background of what the story was about. I had no idea it was based on a true story until after I watched the film. Again, we used to live in a world where movies would get popular even for the wrong reasons. I mean, watching this, I could see people razzing on some of the crazy accent work that is in this movie. But even that's not happening on the internet right now. I am trying to make the point that this movie barely exists. And while I don't think this is a great movie, it's not bad enough to not exist. I'm clearly interested in the futures of all the people involved in this movie, but most importantly, two actresses, Sydney Sydney Sweeny and Ana de Armas, because I really do believe that they have movie star it potential that has yet to be proven, and I thought this year was going to be the year. I thought this was going to be a huge movie for both of them, and I specifically thought, like I said earlier, that 2025 was going to be a giant year for Ana de Armas. She's already gotten an Oscar nomination, but with the perceived failure of Ballerina and now this at the box office, she is not somebody who can clearly sell a movie on her own yet. And with Sweeny, the next big test is Christie. I mean, some people are talking about that movie like he could be a potential Oscar nomination type of role for the actress, but I think that movie needs to make waves. I think that movie needs to be a solid hit. I mean, the more I think about it, the biggest failure of this movie is that it has all of those stars and really only one of them walks away giving one of the best performances of their career, and that's Ana de Armas. I mean, you really had star power here. Jude Law, Vanessa Kirby, Sydney Sweeny, Ana de Armas. And that's why I was hyped for this movie. It had nothing to do with the plot. It really didn't even have that much to do with Ron Howard. It had to do with the fact that I wanted to see these people interact with one another in a movie. And the truth is, none of them were great together. I didn't think Jude Law and Vanessa Kirby had great chemistry. De Armas steals the movie not because she's great with any one actor, but because she's just given the most interesting scenes of the movie. When it comes to the films that I like the most, it all comes down to structure. They all have a purpose at the beginning and they know where they are headed. I think this movie lacked a real structure, and that all comes back to lack of a leading character. Who am I supposed to be following here? You'll read a lot of the reviews for this movie, Eden, and they'll all say, well, Sydney Sweeney's not great throughout the movie, but she has a moment here. Vanessa Kirby's not great throughout the movie, but she has a moment here. That's a problem. De Armas is the only actor in this movie who is good in every single scene she is in. After her, it's a real toss-up of who gives the second best performance of the movie. For my money, I think it's Vanessa Kirby. But for this movie to truly be considered great, it probably would have had to have been from Jude Law. Like, I think Jude Law's performance really needed to work for this movie to be considered great. And it doesn't, and I don't blame Jude Law for that. I think it's the movie failing the actors and not the other way around. And I'm not gonna lie, that kind of surprised me because Ron Howard is someone who I think of when I think of a director who knows what to do with movie stars. This is a guy who helped turn Tom Hanks into a movie star. He's worked with the likes of Russell Crowe and just recently got great performances from both Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen. I guess my expectations for this movie were just higher than most people. I thought this was going to be a big bounce back for Ron Howard. I thought that because he assembled this all-star cast, it would get more eyeballs on the movie. And that was just not the case here. In the end, I do think this movie will just be a blip. I think Sydney Sweeny is going to bounce back. I think Ana de Armas is going to bounce back. I think Jude Law is going to continue his streak of giving really interesting performances. The same goes for Vanessa Kirby. I think Ron Howard is going to bounce back. I do think he is still a good director. I just want to see him make a great movie once again. It's been a long time for Ron Howard making a great movie. He almost got there with 13 Lives. It's a movie I really like. And Eden is a good movie. I did not know the real story going into it, so in that sense, it's really interesting to learn that this is a true story. I do find the movie to be entertaining. I don't know what the movie and the filmmakers behind it are trying to say with it. Maybe they're not trying to say anything. Maybe this is just supposed to be an entertaining thriller. And in that sense, it works. It's good. It's not great. But weirdly enough, I do think it's a movie deserving of more people seeing it. And my hope is if you listen to this podcast and you haven't seen the movie, that you give it a chance. comments. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I recommend you check out the movie Eden. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about the movie One Battle After Another from writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Teyana Taylor, and Chase Infinity. So tune into that and please rate, review, and subscribe.